Hello, Internet. Welcome to Discover RPG, the D&D RPG chat show where we muse about topics we like. We take your questions, we substitute them with our own, and we try to stay on topic and finish our session with enough time to spare. We are happy to greet you on this March 20th afternoon. How are you doing, Logan?
Yes. I am doing very well. Thank you, Angela.
You're welcome. And we were in the middle of a conversation, and I really want to finish it while we're on stream. We were discussing the idea of best Disney villain song and the criteria for such a conversation. And
yes, and I said that you can't just ask what the best anything really is. You got to give some criteria. So I was breaking it down by what is the most abusive, what is the creepiest, what's the most sinister, and which one is the funniest, or as you say, the boppiest kind of sing song. Which one do you always want to go back to and sing? And I think creepiest we agreed on was Hellfire. Hellfire is absolutely...
It's not just creepy, it's emotionally complex and dark and adult and interesting.
But I think Mother Knows Best is the same way. I think it also, not as bad, not as creepy.
Well, the thing with that is it's charming. She's funny and charismatic, but also horrible.
Yeah.
But
it has levels, it has layers.
It does, yeah. Especially the reprise too. Like the reprise is also really good on that one. But Hunchback in general has a lot of big fundamental problems with it, and like I literally have a fan edit on my computer that cuts the gargoyles out. And they only show up every once in a while as like Jason Alexander and a couple of other people, someone from Murphy Brown. Like it was very 90s. But what happens is the gargoyles don't have their stupid song anymore. They don't make inappropriate comments. The Jason Alexander one doesn't hit on the goat all the time. It really disrupts.
It cuts them out of the entire movie.
Yeah, well, they're around still because there are some scenes where you can't remove them. But what it ends up turning them into is these silent, animated figments of his imagination, and it's so fucking good to do it that way.
Oh, that's good. I want to see that.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody knows, were there any better Disney villain songs before Little Mermaid? Like, Little Mermaid might have been like...
I don't know the timeline in my head.
But like old ones. I don't think the villains... Okay, how about this? There was a transition at some point in which people started really liking the villains. Not just like, oh, what a terrible person. Like, no, that person's my hero. Maybe Cruella de Vil, but she didn't get the song. It was just about her.
It was about her, and even then it was not the greatest song. But she is one of the worst villains, in my opinion.
Except she became... She morphed into that... Oh, sure. But the Cruella de Vil morphed into a villain that people idolize once Glenn Close got a hold of her in the live action version. Because I just saw a photo shoot from the the costume tests, and I went like, damn, she's you go, Miss Close.
Thank you, P.A. Perryman, for subscribing for the 3rd month. We really appreciate that. It's a big help.
Yeah.
Madam Mim had a song. It was more of a talky song.
Sure,
but it's more of a prose.
Yeah, even Tessa said the phony King of England from Robin Hood, but those were about the villains mocking the villains. Like, at a certain point, yeah, they were given these, like, we are amazing and you should just idolize us sort of villain songs.
You want to talk about creepy? Trust in Me.
Man, that's
now the new version, hauntingly beautiful, but the 1967 version was still creepy.
So there've been enough Jungle Books right now. Remind me, who plays Kaa in that version? Because there's a couple. I don't know if it's like...
Oh my gosh, there are a lot of these. Pink Elephants on Parade is considered a villain in its own right. I like that. Okay,
it's an intoxication song, I guess.
The Elegant Captain Hook from Peter Pan.
I fucking forgot about that.
I completely forgot about it.
Radigan's a great song. From Great Mouse Detective. That is a good ass villain song. Yeah. I don't know why, but I just remember because that whole point was that he's
The
He's
world's
so
greatest criminal mind.
Yeah, first of all, love it. Vincent Price, amazing. But the idea that like the end of that song is somebody, like the one guy drunkenly slipping and calling him a rat, and that's like his one thing he can't stand, and then it turns into the murdering him via cat. Like that's such a good, so good. I also do love the inevitable online discourse that Ratigan and Basil just act like they're exes, and I'm like, yeah, they do. They do act like bitter exes, and I kind of love it.
I Want to Be Like You, another one for the Jungle Book, technically a villain song.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess so. That's a bop. That's a bop right there. You're just looking these up at this point. I don't blame you.
Oh, I am. But so here's a weird one. 1977, Pete's Dragon, Every Little Piece. I don't remember it, but evidently there's a villain song in that.
That was the snake oil salesman guy. Like, oh yeah, those guys were. They were slimy. Yeah, that was a good one. I haven't watched Pete's Dragon in
on this particular list, even though they're talking about the classics, also their top 5 are Friends on the Other Side, Hellfire, Gaston, Poor Unfortunate Souls, and of course, top of the list, Be Prepared. Which
those were all
any
good.
Other actor,
those 5 are great.
Any other actor would not have been able to nail that. It would not have come across as well. I think that Be Prepared absolutely tops the list for me. Hellfire is there, but when I think of a villain song, I want to think about the entirety of the movie itself, not just the one villain. Hellfire was great, but the movie itself, I don't watch. When Lion King came out, I watched it 30 times in a row. 12 or whatever, but you know.
Yeah, the VHS. You wear the VHS out. It happens. Okay, so I think, we exhausted that topic fairly thoroughly. I approve of all villain songs, personally.
Yes, Hellfire is absolutely the creepiest, in my opinion. It is the one that hits the notes of cringe and just no, stop. It is the moment where you want something bad to happen to this person, like before you're like, I hope he gets better, and then you're all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I just hope he dies.
For PA Perryman, I need to at some point share the thesis that somebody wrote about Gaston clearly being the safer choice for Belle in historical context for when that movie takes place, where it's like, if you married the prince, you're gonna end up in the Bastille, Belle. Like, what's about to happen socioeconomically in France? He's a jerk, but he's well liked. It was pretty great. But it was like a PowerPoint somebody had put together, and I'll be honest, Logan, if I thought we had the time or the energy, I would 100% want to have either at the Nerdsmith meetup or at the house a PowerPoint party. I think that would be super fucking fun.
Well, okay, please explain to me exactly what a PowerPoint party is.
A PowerPoint party is where everybody comes to the party with a 3-minute presentation about something that they are passionate about irrationally, and they present it via PowerPoint.
So it's like a really horrible version of Toastmasters.
It's a personal TED Talk, yes. It's Nerdsmith TED Talk, where we give a 3-minute video, and that's the kind of shit you'd get, is someone going, from a historical context, Belle definitely would have been better off if she had married Gaston. And then a 3-minute justification. I personally think that would be super fun.
Maybe that'll be our next meetup. We'll do...
It's a TED Talk.
We'll do... I don't know what
I'll be honest, Kyle's would be amazing. I feel like Kyle would take that very seriously.
Kyle would definitely take it seriously. Kyle's got a lot of things to rant about. Let's talk about this little thing. You might notice, or you might not have noticed, I hope you didn't notice, that there is one less thing on our list. We used to have well, whatever all that is plus one more. We always start with our playful banter. Then we go to several topics that vary every week. Some of them have some consistency to what we talk about, some don't. And then we always end with our dance party. Well, we've now added something that will also never change right before the dance party, at least we think so, an in-review section. The original idea of these discussions was just for us to do what we were doing anyway and have these weird conversations. But we're also realizing this is a great opportunity for us to be using this time to work on the video series that we're going to be working on with Die Hard Dice in partnership. And so what we're going to be doing is at the end of the session, and also it's kind of a review for all of us, we're going to be reviewing everything we talked about, kind of making some bullet points for us and hopefully for you, for everyone here. And if you just catch the last little bit of it, you might get some of the good information anyway. So we're going to be trying that out this week and probably for the next few weeks to see if that's going to help our format a little bit. Just the last probably 20 minutes or so, maybe half an hour, while we just kind of go through everything again, write down some bullet points, and start talking about how we want the video to kind of be laid out. A little inside look into the development of the awesome, amazing single video series that we're putting out. We've only had one so far, but you can go see that at dieharddice.com. Go to their about in the blog, and you can see that video, because all those videos are being produced in partnership with Die Hard Dice. They get exclusive rights to them until the next video comes out. So we're trying to help that next video come out so we can put that on the website and then go to the next one. So that'll all be happening very soon. So what do we got here? All systems go. We're going to be talking about something we promised last week. We put it at the top of the list, Battery Life, which is a one-page RPG where people play robots whose batteries are dying. And I'm going in fairly blind other than that. I'm going to be taking a quick look at it here because I've been swamped and I haven't had time. But Angela's loving it. And I just love the concept of it. Honestly, Honey Heist, when I heard it, I love the concept of it. And Crash Pandas, I love the concept of. All of those things made me very happy just in their own right. I didn't need much more explanation. I has a flavor. We were going to be talking about something else we didn't get to last week, which was the reflavoring of healing potions and different ways you can create ways to heal in game. Then we're going to go on to Apocalypse When. We're going to talk about the Powered by the Apocalypse system. I was just in a game on the Scraticus channel over on the Scraticus channel Monday, and I got to play a Powered by the Apocalypse. I've used it for a long time, but it was one of the probably one of the top 5 gaming experiences I've had in decades. I had a lot of fun over there. It was really amazing from a player's perspective. That's all I was talking about, from a player perspective. As a DM, me DMing can't be beat in the amount of fun that I have with the people that I play with. So, but when it comes to a player's perspective, I don't play very often. But seriously, in decades, like 2 decades easily, it was absolutely one of my favorite things. So we'll talk more about that and the Powered by the Apocalypse system in general. Making it matter. We're going to talk a little bit about something that's been brought up a lot lately online. The idea of random encounters and should you use them? Should you use random encounters? Should you take more time to get to things and try to make things matter more in the long run? Then we're going to wrap up with Funhouse rules. We're going to be talking about, I don't remember.
We're talking about alternate rules for starting stat bonuses. Oh,
yeah. That's a good one.
Things about just different ways of getting that initial bump that customizes your character. Most of you probably know that D&D assigns it to your race. And I've seen other ways of going about that. Maybe trying to remove the idea of racial disparity or racial inequality in certain ways, if that is something that you're interested in doing in your game.
Tessa, are you saying they turned Goat Simulator into a one-page RPG? Because I've never played Goat Simulator, but I'm kind of intrigued.
As with everything, Logan, you can watch the map and play it, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah. That's a good one. When we get this new layout over to OBS, we're talking about adding in the chat so people can see the VOD with the chat. So I think that's an important addition. We don't know where the hell we're going to put it, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll just shrink me up to the corner. You just see Angela in the chat.
Well, we don't always have that box on the bottom used when that's the alerts and stuff. We could always have the alerts show up somewhere else and make them a little smaller or something. And then
right over my tiny face up in the right. The goat party. A goat
crashers. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it. Thank you so much,
Is
Zach.
a goat party like a donkey party? I've not. Okay, all right.
If you're a fainting goat, your special ability is fainting.
Is that from the thing, or is that just you making shit up?
No, that's it. I like it. Anyway, also satanic goat. I'm a big fan. Occultism is your skill.
Right.
Anyway, we will definitely go through Goat Crasher. I will make a list of it. Also, I will say that Grant Howitt also just came out with a new one this week. Maybe today. I don't remember. I found it today, but I don't know if it's new. But yeah.
So what is it?
It is shoot. Oh, it's a game where you play a bunch of kobolds trying to make the biggest distraction so you can steal gold from a dragon.
Oh, neat.
Okay. Funhouse rules. We're going to talk about the alternate systems for assigning bonuses to your stats at the beginning of a game, and then in review we will go back over what we had and try to come up with a couple of big key takeaways and how to approach the videos that we will make for any of those if we decide to make a video about any of those.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about Battery Life.
All right, Battery Life. Battery Life is not by Mr. Howitt. Battery Life is by Joe I. Sock. S-O-K. I'll put a link in the chat. So Battery Life is how about I just read some of it? Congratulations on purchasing a cut price robot. This guide, by the way, things are scratched out on this document. This guide should teach you how to look after your exciting new purchase. While a mistake at the factory, intentional design decision has led to it being unable to be recharged, you'll still have lots of fun with it. Your robot starts with 15 free batteries. If its power ever hits 0, it enters emergency power mode with 60 seconds to find more power before it permanently enters sleep mode. Do not charge robots past 15 unless you want them to explode. So you basically are rolling d6s to attempt any non-trivial task. The robot's internal GM, or guidance microprocessor, will inform them the number it must beat in order to succeed. So you get a plus d6 on tasks that are related to your purpose. Were you tasked with cleaning, building, talking, destroying, or doing something else? A robot will also have one item that could be a tool for fulfilling its purpose, a treasured memento, or even something it just found lying around. So you can have one object with you. You scavenge extra battery from technology, but this will void your warranty. Usually you'll get 2 batteries from something small like a phone, 4 from something medium like a computer, or 6 from something massive like a car. When a robot is about to take physical damage, a protective field, TM, can be created to negate the damage. Failing to create a field results in the robot becoming incapacitated, immobile, broken, reduced to scrap metal, or having a wiped memory. Quote, despite cruel and libelous comments from other manufacturers, do not worry about any danger, as your robot has been programmed to never directly physically harm a human. However, there is nothing in their programming preventing them from letting others harm people, creating situations where harm will likely come to someone, or causing untold psychological damage. So, you roll to figure out where your robot is. It can be on a moon base, a rusty mining ship, a fantasy theme park, a post-apocalyptic city, a secret underground lair, an infected hospital, robotics factory, military base, or a, quote, haunted opera house. And then you roll to decide what your robot needs to do. Do they need to escape? Stop a rogue AI, save the hostages, discover the source of the strange noise, end the war, find the lost treasure, avenge the death of its creator, disable the self-destruct sequence, or find where all the humans have gone. So, I've skipped a couple of the the technical stuff, but that's the gist of the game. You're robots, you're trying to achieve a goal in a certain location, and you're trying to achieve that goal before you run out of battery, and you have to find more batteries as you go. Sounds pretty fucking rad. It sounds like WALL-E, if WALL-E was a murder hobo.
No murder. Psychological damage or
putting people in situations.
hobo.
So this brings me to a very small tangent. Andy and I have started playing Borderlands again on PS4 because I bought the PS4 version. And it's one of the only games we co-op. It's ridiculous. But there are robots later in the game, and one of them fell and took damage, and it said, first law deactivated. Nice. I was like, okay, that was pretty fucking great.
That's hilarious.
It just happened in the background. It wasn't even like a main scene. It just happened around us, and Andy's like, did you just hear that? I love this game.
That's amazing. So one of the... it's funny, I've actually never played past the first 5 or 10 minutes because I didn't get into it. And I prefer multiplayer games, but specifically co-op if possible.
Borderlands 2 is amazing.
Is it co-op?
Yeah. It's couch co-op too.
Oh, okay. So I like this. I think it's got a great premise. There's some things that throw me a little bit with it. One of the reasons why some of these are doing extremely well out there are like Honey Heist was obviously the first one that really cracked big, although there were several before that were kind of more underground, but I think part of that is because Critical Role grabbed onto it and used it, which was a huge step. But also I think that started this idea that these games could be amazing and showed how much fun these games could be to people who didn't necessarily ever give them a second look, people like me. And not because I wasn't interested, but just because I had other things I'd rather be doing. But now, having played Honey Heist and things, I see that they're amazing, a lot of fun, and great. I see your value. Just kind of palate cleansers. This is missing for me, and I would probably just create something, a little bit of whimsy. You know, in Honey Heist, you had the idea of being able to blend in as a human. And idea that you could speak bear, you know.
Well, and in Crash Pandas, no one ever questions it. You're just raccoons that can drive cars. You're street racers.
This to me is a solid sort of premise. This feels like it's a, you know, it's there's nothing obscenely ridiculous about it, like there is in the other one, and that is what makes those games gives me a lot of attention to them. Is this level of ridiculousness to them. So I would want to find and add a level of ridiculousness to this game. I don't know what it would be, but that is. I will say
having it happen in a theme park could add that bit of ridiculousness.
Or
avenging the death of your creator at a theme park would be.
Well,
amazing.
I might add there's certain abilities, there's a chart of abilities that you have, you know, one of them is you know, you're a crushinator. You know, you're 40 feet tall and you have gigantic hands that are designed to crush cars.
Well, you do know that one of the rules of this game should have to be you have to talk like a robot.
Of course.
That is definitely a thing you have to do when you're playing this game.
Yeah. A human killing laser beam should be one of them. It's wait, we're not allowed to kill humans, right? But you have a human killing laser beam. You know, there's just some whimsy to it or some fun. It's a welder. That would be something I would like to add. But overall, I think this is a very solid premise. Could be played very realistically, also very, very ridiculously. And I think that in general, this is a fun game. I like it.
Agreed. I am a big fan of looking at one-page one-shots. I think we're becoming fans of doing those as reviews because of how easy it is to go over them.
Yeah. Well, there's every year there's an entire there's a group that does what are called 200-word RPGs, which is where these kind of started, and there's a lot of them. I even took one and adjusted it with the Powered by the Apocalypse system, and made it, you know, a game that I wanted to play. But there's a lot of very cool 200-word RPGs out there. They do an award thing and pick the best ones, and really, really neat stuff. They get hundreds of entries every year. Trying to remember the link on that, but I'll try to find that and put that out there. So in general, I think Battery Life is definitely worth a try. I would definitely play it and see what kind of ridiculous scenarios we can come up with. I think one of the things that it should clarify for people who don't play these very often is each robot should not roll where they are. You shouldn't put people in different locations.
Right.
It should be a group thing. Because the way it reads, it's your robot is over here, your robot's over there, and you're never going to interact with each other. And that doesn't, it's you're all playing an individual different game. Unless
you're all networked into each other and you're trying to achieve different tasks to achieve the same goal.
That's funny.
Now you have to figure out how the theme park ties in to the moon base.
Ooh. The theme park's on the moon.
We're whalers on the moon. We carry a harpoon. I don't know the rest of the words. And sing a whaling tune. I don't remember the rest of it. It's been a while. It's like the second episode of Futurama.
All right.
It's like 15 years ago, Logan.
You literally haven't watched it.
It's been a while. It's been a few years.
All right.
That's all. All right.
I watch the entire series every year, at least once a year.
I missed the last 2 seasons.
Except for 2 episodes I don't ever watch.
Yep, there are 2 episodes.
The dog and the one with well, you probably haven't seen it. It's in the final seasons. There's another one I don't watch. Have you seen the one with the giant bee?
Yeah, that wasn't okay. That's the last season before it went to Comedy Central.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah. That episode with Leela.
I was thinking, are you going to be the bee episode?
Yeah. So yeah, there's 2 episodes I never will. But I'll be one occasionally if it's on. I'm just not paying attention. I'm busy. I'll like, okay, whatever. That dog one, no, I will stop whatever the fuck I'm doing to turn that one. It never happened. It's not okay. And I know they fixed it. But no.
Still hurts.
Still hurts.
All right, so let's not talk about the dog episode and go to something else. I has a flavor. So this all came up because I believe Matthew Siebert's in chat right now, but this all came up when Matthew and I were in when Matthew was guesting here on Discover. We talked about the new Artificer on that Wizards of the Coast just put out, and the Artificer Revised talked about something that I was very impressed with. You and I, Logan, have talked before about the idea of flavoring magic as tech. And they actually wrote into that document some of their little side suggestions about, just because we give you guys spells that are from the normal PHB doesn't mean you can't flavor them to appease your need for your artificer to be more of a tinkerer. So there's no reason that you can't figure out how to reflavor what you're doing as not necessarily an arcane spell. You could have it feed through some sort of invention that you've made. It doesn't have to be exactly as written or how people have been playing other arcane classes before. And so the example they gave was, hey, instead of a potion, maybe you let out a little mechanical spider and the little mechanical spider scuttles across the field, or you have to be right next to them or something. It's same within 5 feet, feed it to the person. But the action, instead of feeding a potion to another person, is the little spider crawls up and weaves their wound closed. Like, that could be a way of flavoring what a health potion could essentially do. And I thought that was a fabulous idea, that they were like, no, here's how you can add tinkering and mechanics and robotics into your artificer in a way that they didn't necessarily build into the character. And that they encouraged people to kind of reflavor an existing thing. Yeah. But then I also really latched onto this idea of how else could you represent a health potion? You have the same thing with like 2d4 plus 4, but how in the world could you express it as something other than just you chug a potion? It does the same thing, doesn't change anything mechanically, but it just changes the vibe of the world. And there were ways that you could just replace potions with something new, or why wouldn't multiple people have invented a different way of healing somebody? So why not have that be a different flavor? You could have a divine version and a druid version and an arcane version or a mechanical version of how a health potion could work. They already sort of have this. There's like salves and things like that, and obviously spells that heal. But I was just really keying in on this idea of maybe like magic items, disposable magic items that do the same thing as a health potion, but would just feel different. So a couple of things that I thought of, maybe something like this was from a Reddit thread. I'll give credit where credit is due. Some people were giving some really good ideas. Somebody suggested a quill and an ink pot that you could draw over the affected area, and when it heals, it leaves a tattoo in the shape that you drew, which I really liked. I thought that was fun. You could have
dick butts for days.
Pretty much. Something like a small nondescript stone roughly the size of a marble, and you suck on it like a lozenge.
Right.
There's okay, my favorite one, a standard healing potion, but the glass is cracked above where the water line should be, and so the potion has turned to powder. But if you manage to down it all cinnamon challenge style, it still works. That was from Shiny Midnight on Reddit.
I like that.
They put a D6 healing item thing. So I really like this idea of there's like flowers, you could harvest the pollen, and the pollen could be wiped on a wound to heal it. A severed troll finger that must be pruned and treated with acid to prevent an entirely new troll from growing.
Jesus.
You squeeze it for blood like an orange, mix it with a powdered earth elemental for stability, and the regenerative properties are stabilized and muted by a person's stomach acid enough so that it heals your wound instead of growing a new troll inside you. As fascinating as I find the troll regenerative thing, it has a lot of problems. There's a lot of consent and like cannibalism problems with the troll.
Yeah, we've talked about that one a lot.
Which is why partially I enjoyed the idea. It's a little macabre, but I wrote the idea of a character having a troll thumb that they traded for something, but they had to pay the troll for the thumb. Like the troll's like, oh yeah, okay, here. Give me gold.
I like that.
But yeah, within reason, selling your body parts off because they're just gonna grow back.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
So the idea of different ways of expressing healing items.
So the one that has always gotten me as kind of hilarious, it comes from 8-Bit Theater. If you've never seen 8-Bit Theater, it's I can't remember the gentleman's name. I could look it up, but he took the original Final Fantasy, the original American Final Fantasy 8-bit graphics, and created a whole story all on his own about those characters in a webcomic, and it is hilarious. And Black Mage is an evil, horrible, funny, hilarious person that fails at everything he does. But he went around with a dagger, claiming it was a healing shiv, and he would stab people to try to heal them. And I always thought that would be hilarious to have a healing shiv that does normal dagger damage, but that heals you for a healing potion on top of that. So most of the time you'll probably get a net gain, but maybe not always.
One that I sort of merged from a couple of different suggestions would be almost creating a Band-Aid. It's something that is adhesive on one side that you slap on a wound, but on the inside of it is a glyph that opens a very tiny portal to the plane of positive energy. So you just smack it on somebody's arm and it opens a very small portal, and it just emanates, let's call it
Healing
good radiation
magic.
on people.
Well, it heals your wounds, but it also gives you cancer. So,
but it's positive cancer.
It's positive.
But yeah, so I've seen something like that. I like the it's so
positive cancer.
I don't know. A snake that I'd say a mechanical snake that sucks poison blood through one fang, filters it, and then re-injects it with the other. It's a little snake dialysis machine.
Oh my god.
A
good aligned tumor. Okay. That is good aligned humor right there.
A gem that emits a laser to cauterize wounds. That's kind of cool. And a foamy gel that is sprayed into an open wound and then hardens. That kind of reminds me of what happened to Syl in Countless Heroes. She got like a giant jagged piece of metal stuck in her when one of the nocturnes exploded, and then we had already established that her people use bronzing as like armor, but then we're like, well, why don't they just fill in the wound like Hulk? Just seal it up. And so it's never come into play again, but she has a giant scar down her side that has
taken that kind of damage before or since then either. So
pretty much.
No, I think that's the great idea. I like all of these suggestions, and I'm a huge fan for reflavoring pretty much anything. Healing potions are a very unique one. The sort of way they look and taste, it can be something simple like that, or going into some of these more mechanical or very strange sorts of way. I was thinking one would be kind of funny would be like if you wanted to reflavor for like a ranged healing, you could do like those the arrows they used in Hook, they have the big sticky things, the colorful sticky things at the end, and just kind of shoot the wound with it. It kind of seals it up and then heals it for a second.
Yeah, also, really good aim.
It leaves that stain, and you have an arrow sticking out of you, and you hit too many of them, and it starts to become a detriment. That's the drawback to them being ranged. You always got to add that balance of drawback. I learned that on Homebrew Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Got to balance it out.
Okay. One particular suggestion from one Dory, I think is the name, a clockwork mechanism that attaches to a wounded limb and rewinds time to before the limb was injured. Like just very concentrated timey-wimey portal.
All right, that's interesting.
That is right, but the idea of just a different way of approaching how healing could function.
Sure.
It's not just shoot you full of magic and all of a sudden your wound heals. It's we're physically changing time.
And I'm very lucky I'm not in a game like this anymore. The problem with adding things like that could be, for some people, that they have players that will then go, well, if it does that, let me go and fix other things with the same magic. And that starts to come into a lot of these strange ideas of where flavor can start to bite you in the butt.
Or open up a whole new avenue, depending on how game you are for that repercussion.
It depends. In my earlier days of DMing, I was not prepared to deal with situations like that. If it can turn back time and heal wounds, can it give me a facelift? Can it make me look younger? Can it do all sorts of things?
Logan, you let it, and then you're like, but you can't control it. All of a sudden, you have a baby.
You're a baby face. You have a literal baby face.
It heals one cheek, and you've got that creepy little rosy pinched baby cheek.
But only right.
You lose all your adult teeth.
Lose one charisma.
You would have gained a charisma if you had been all baby. But just part baby.
Yeah, I mean, part baby is just creepy.
Yeah.
Part baby is just too creepy for words.
So yeah, I'm a tremendously big fan of this. I love the idea of maybe reflavoring health potions in a number of ways.
Two-Face would have been a very different bad.
But yeah, the idea of if you're dealing in a high magic situation, in a world where magic is ubiquitous, it's used to solve modern day everyday problems, I really like the idea of there being more than one solution. That I think I'd said this before off camera, but more than one person invents a means of locomotion. Somebody invents the wheel. Somebody decides, well, we do it this way. Like, there's different ways of solving one problem. So I really like the idea of that happening in a magical circumstance where a tinkerer would come up with one solution, an alchemist would come up with a potion, a druid would come up with like a jar of mud that you can spear on. Just different ways of doing that. And I really like thinking out of the box. The time dilation thing used carefully and purposefully could be very interesting. So yeah, I love reflavoring. I
agree. I am completely stuck on Two-Face as a babyface now. So all I see is Tommy Lee Jones talking out of one side and the baby from Look Who's Talking with John Travolta's voice talking out the other side. And then flipping a coin and being like heads or lunch, booby time. I'm just like, it's just ridiculous. I'm stuck in this mind space now. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry. Here, let's get your mind off it and It's
Let's talk about something. Let's talk about something less disturbing than Baby Two-Face.
We can either talk about Powered by the Apocalypse, or it's 4 o'clock, or it's almost at the hour. We can talk about. We can go into our ad break.
Let's earn some money.
Okay. So a lot of you probably know that we are members of the Nerdsmith Network.
Wait, you can't do
which is currently on our session plan. So nerdsmith.org is an entertainment network that we run and are proud members of. We have a bunch of really kick-ass podcasts, active plays, streaming shows, lots of content that we present free to you, our viewers and listeners, our beloved audience. And we are just really happy to be able to continue doing this. We just passed our 1-year anniversary, and we are super excited to continue doing things this year.
Yes.
We are so appreciative of the people that are very generously subscribing to our network with monthly donations to help keep our lights on and our website running and our crops watered. And it really helps to know that people...
Are we Farmville now?
No. I mean, I am playing Stardew Valley. But subscribing to Nerdsmith can really help support the creators that want to do this, but, you know, hold down multiple jobs so that they can keep doing this, or the people that really want to make a go of a sustainable means of making content and presenting it. And we love the fact that we present all our content free, and subscribing is an optional thing, but anyone who is incredibly generous and wants to find a way to keep us going and show us that you want us to keep making content, subscribing is definitely an incredible way to do so. Or you can share and tell people about the network and our shows. Word of mouth is so important. If you don't have the money to share, if you
if you do, word of mouth is still the most important thing.
That's true. Show us your love with your dollars and your mouth.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway.
I didn't even go there.
It happened. So if you have a Twitter, if you have Tumblr, Facebook, anything like that, tell people about Nerdsmith or about our show here, Discover RPG. Tell them why you like it. Tell them why they should like it and check it out. We would love to get more eyes on our stuff and our friends' shows as well.
Glad you didn't say junk.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad you didn't say well. But again, you're doing great.
So, but if you happen to be, since it is nearing the end of March, if you happen to be in the Anaheim area on March 30th, which is where WonderCon is going to be this year, Nerdsmith is going to have their first sponsored meetup, sponsored by World Anvil, with refreshments sponsored by Die Hard Dice. And we are going to have a huge number of creators there. We are so happy to finally get to hang out with a bunch of us. And you are welcome to join. You can come with us and hang out. We're going to be at the Hilton.
Free.
Yes, for free. You can just come hang out. Even if you're not, even if you're not going to WonderCon, you can still hang out at the party, and you can find us at the Hilton in the Carmel room. The Hilton is the host hotel, is it not?
The Hilton is the host hotel. It's the one on campus there at the convention center. So I don't know what parking is like. I don't know how to get there, but if you can get to downtown Disney, you can get to us. You know, you can come down and spend some time at downtown Disney and come hang out with us for a couple of hours, and then we'll probably go down to the game room and hang out and play games with everyone even after that, because we're crazy.
Heck yeah. So the party is from 8 till 10 p.m.
Yes, 8 till 10 p.m. The first 50 people will get free drink tickets with their ID and being 21 or over, obviously. Mm-hmm. And other than that, we've got a no-host bar there, so you can buy some more drinks there and just enjoy and relax and hang out. And we'll have a lot of the Cantata Pensophical people there, if you're familiar with that. I'm sure that there'll be some singing. I've been pushing for Charm and Trouble to do some music there, some fun, goofy songs. So we're going to have a lot of goofy fun, I'm sure.
No PowerPoint party. Maybe
we're over 20 some odd, easily over 20 some odd creators going to be there, I think.
Yeah.
And we'll have all sorts of creators there. Do we have that
Yeah,
much?
a huge number of the vast majority of the Countless Heroes are going to be there. And I believe some
Champions of the Earth, Countless Heroes, Charm and Trouble, Dear DM, Plot Hunters, In Vain, The Land Above, Wand Radio, Geek Thyself, Threads in the Veil, Alice in Underland, and Shenanigans will all be represented by someone at this thing. So if you like any of those shows, it's a great time to come on down.
Heck yeah, I put it in the video, the link to the Facebook event. So if you want to tell us you're coming, please let us know. We have almost 27 people coming, I know, that have checked in right now. And we have... What is the deal with the lanyards, Logan? Those beautiful, beautiful
we have
lanyards.
them, and I like to show them off. We might save one or two of these to give away. We also have giveaways from Die Hard Dice. We'll probably have some giveaways from World Anvil, and we might have some giveaways from some of the directors that have some things that they want to give away. So maybe some things.
Some people have been slaving away at.
Some people have been making things, and I know that we've got a few other prizes here and there that we're going to be able to do. So it's going to be very, very amazing. We'll have a lot of fun, and it's going to be a very NSFW party. If you're not comfortable with body songs and silliness, probably not for you.
Body or both?
Both, probably both.
By the way, Logan.
What?
I've seen Andy's outfit.
Oh, that's right. And
He tried it on.
Andy is coming as his character.
I don't know if he's going to be at the party dressed like that, but he will definitely one of the days when we're cosplaying.
He specifically during stream last week said, "Come to the party," and he will be dressed up like that. He said it live on stream. Okay. He has to follow through now. So right. I hope he is. If he is not comfortable, we don't want him to push. But yes, Andy is definitely taking it to the next level. So that'll be a lot of fun.
He's also going to be super comfortable.
Yeah, because he'll be completely naked underneath it, I'm sure.
He has comfortable shorts. He can wear comfortable shorts. Anyway.
But why would you?
I don't know. Because it's 100% polyester.
So there'll be some changes to the Nerdsmith Network coming pretty soon here. On Tuesdays, Countless Heroes will no longer be streaming on Tuesday nights. We got a new show coming, which is actually an old show that we're turning into a live stream. Shenanigans, the podcast, is becoming Shenanigans Live. That's not the actual name. We're just going to call it Shenanigans still. And we're going to be doing that live. We'll be doing it as a streaming show every Tuesday night. Tuesday afternoons at noon PST, I believe, we will be doing Final Rights, which is an all tiefling cast, which Angela's on. I'll let her do the elevator pitch for.
Final Rights is an all tiefling all tiefling party. Our crew is not all tiefling. We all work on a riverboat that sails the river Styx. We are a neutral ground between demons and devils and angels, and so we, hang out and party on and go through the plains. It should be quite a time. I'm very excited.
And that is being DM'd by Jason Catrone, the nicest mobster you'll ever meet. Just Jason, please, on Twitter, who has done a lot of different shows on I think Encounter Roleplay. He's been on Scraticus. He's been on the Greyhawk channel. He's been all over the place. If you've probably seen, if you watch a lot of streams, you've probably seen Jason. You may not have realized it was him, but yes, you've definitely probably seen him. He's done a lot of stuff. And then, of course, Rachel, who is I don't remember her Twitter handle.
Talonier.
Right, who is an incredible artist and a wonderful actress, and she will be there as well. Also, very often the goal is eventually to ramp up to, I believe, a guest every week, right, or every other week, because it's only every other week.
As much as we can. But also Heavenly from Monster Crush.
Oh gosh, I forgot. It's 3. Yeah, I was thinking 3 with Jason.
Already a member of our network, but yes, so excited
already, absolutely.
to play with her. I'm so excited.
Very excited. And so it's going to be a very, very cool show. Also from I've been on the Greyhawk channel and several other streams. It's going to be a very, very cool show. That's going to be every other week. Every week that is not running, at least for the meantime, we will be filling that spot with doing our World Anvil and world building stream, DRPG world building. and that will be coming then. The other temporary change, and I'm very excited about this one as we roll this out. I don't even know if Angela was there for the announcement last night. We are not going to be doing Countless Heroes during our sub drive. During our 2-week sub drive from April 16th through the 30th, we are turning Countless Heroes into Nerdsmith mixers. And we are going to be bringing in creators from every show, hopefully, and maybe even some people from outside the network, to come in and do DMing and gaming. And we're going to do a bunch of one-shots for 2 weeks straight to promote the network and to promote the shows and to show all of the creators off in different light, and to kind of give everyone a chance to just relax, be silly, have fun, and get to know the audience and let them, let you get to know them. Because some of you may only know Colin or Jesse from Champions from the podcast. You may not know who they are really, and seeing them live and getting a chance like that would be a great one. Kyle Gold has already agreed to come back, and he played Jot, and he's agreed to come back and do a thing. Matthew Siebert, I'm sure, is on board to either DM or to come and play.
Let's talk to more people before we lock them in on camera.
I think I'm locking everyone in. This is how I do it. This is how I do. I get them while we're on camera. Nobody ever says no when we're on camera. That's how we got Jason to do the thing. I called him out right in the middle of the show. But in general, I think we're going to have a lot of amazing things from that. We're going to have a lot of fun that week. We'll be doing some extra shows on the weekends as well. And we're just gonna really knock it out of the park. We want to show you during that 2 weeks where if we start earning enough money, we can be as a network. That's the goal, is those 2 weeks. We want to show you our future. And show you all the amazing people we work with, and show you how many shows we can be producing and what type of content we can be putting out there. In addition to being our fundraiser, obviously, and showing off little teasers of all the bonus content that we'll be putting out, which we already have some amazing bonus content. And all of those shows will be live broadcast, but then after that, they're going to go immediately into our vault and become part of our bonus content. So only subscribers will have access to them after the fact, because they're all special, awesome bonus content from that week. So try to catch them live if you can. If you can't, you're gonna have to subscribe to see them. So but they will definitely be worth it, I promise.
I'm so excited.
So that's all that's coming up. We've talked about World Anvil. We've talked about Die Hard Dice. You can go to dieharddice.com, use the coupon code DRPG, those 4 letters, for 15% off your first or next order. It works once for any person. Go. That's how we show love to our sponsors. That's how we show them that we're actually doing a good job, is by having people use that coupon code. So please use that coupon code, get your 15% off, and help us show our sponsors that we are worth keeping around.
More importantly, on Die Hard Dice, you can be eligible for a dice giveaway this month if you use the code DiscoverRP, or use the hashtag DiscoverRPG on Twitter. We will randomly select a follower, so you need to follow DiscoverRPG Show. I'll put our link up there. But if you follow us on Twitter and you use that hashtag, you will be put into a random prize drawing of a Die Hard Dice set of your choice, and it's super awesome, and you should totally do it. Because we love hearing questions and suggestions and RPG stories, things that you love, things that you want to know more about, all sorts of cool things. And if you're completely blank on ideas for what to do, you can do a text autocomplete that says Discover RPG is, and just see what comes out of your phone's brain. And that is also a legitimate eligible post type. So please do so. But we will announce that in April after WonderCon. We will announce our winners there. We don't have a ton for March, so you got a real good chance if you do it now. So do it.
Tell your friends to do it. I know that gives you less of a chance, but it shows off the show more, and that's how we show love.
So love and all that stuff. Shall we talk about the apocalypse? Talk about the end of the world, shall we?
Let's talk about the end of the world.
Okay. I hope my glasses stay intact. I'll be very sad. That's a Twilight Zone reference.
Twilight Zone. That was good. That was a deep cut. That was really good. That was very good.
Did Futurama make a joke about that too? Wasn't it with the brain cell?
Yeah, because he's like, well, my eyesight wasn't that bad, but his eyes melt out of his...
Well, no, there was the one with the brain cell, though. It was like, there was time. It was like by himself, there was the one lone brain cell.
That's right.
Okay, so what we were talking about, or particularly what Logan would like to talk about, is the idea of I don't know if you want to talk about the system itself, but we did talk about partial successes being a feature you would like to discuss.
Partials. So, if you're not familiar with the Powered by the Apocalypse system, the very simple version. I know it's a little more complicated than this. The very simple version is you roll 2d6, and your stat. You have certain stats, and you get a bonus or a minus depending on the stat. But the basic system is you roll 2d6. And you add or subtract your stats, and a 6 or below is a complete failure. A 7 to 9 is a partial success, or a success/failure, and then a 10 and up is a complete success. And in some extreme cases, a 12 or beyond can be a perfect, what they call a perfect success, where you completely get to everything you want and then some. The thing I've always struggled with this system is partial successes, because there are times when a partial success just does not come into play. It does not quite. It doesn't make sense that there would be a partial success. And of course, now I'm blanking on any possible suggestion on when this might happen. But the example that happened to me while I was playing in Scraticus with Dawn as the DM on Monday, which, as I said, was one of the best experiences, was we were in an insane asylum, and we were looking around one of the staff areas. This is in modern day. 2018 is when the apocalypse happened in that game, a zombie apocalypse type scenario. Everyone got sick and died, to only 0.2% of the population remaining or something, 0.02, which I'm not even sure how many that people would be. I was concerned, or we were trying to get out. So one way was blocked. I went looking for a evacuation plan. Like it's 2018. OSHA requires evacuation plans every 50 feet or whatever, near every exit, or 2 or 3 doors to go through. I can't remember all the exact rules, but they should be literally everywhere. So I went looking for one. I got a partial success, and I found a clipboard, said evacuation plan on it, nothing on it. Like, okay, I understand that, but where's the partial success? And instead of it being related to to that in particular, my character found 2 new fun things to play with: a fire axe and a fire extinguisher. And to me, I love that. I thought it was a great situation, but I wasn't sure that it fit the spirit of partial success when it came to the game. In the end, it was a great thing, and it made my end moments of that game perfect. I'm glad that it went exactly the way it went, but I was trying to figure out, because I've always concerned myself in a situation like that, where if a player considers something a partial success, I worry that if they don't get a success of the thing they're particularly trying to do, they don't consider that a partial success at all. So that kind of, and again, no fault on Dawn. Dawn's an amazing DM, and again, it went perfect. Everything was great. I personally went, yes, this is a partial success. I got a new weapon, and I got a new fire extinguisher. Came in clutch in the end. It didn't work, but I threw it at a guy, and it worked out great. So it was a success in a partial success in that way, but some players wouldn't consider that a partial success. At least that's my fear as a DM. And so I wonder what to do about that. I was going to ask you in the audience, and how is that a valid concern? Is that an invalid concern? Does anybody feel that a situation like that is not true to the rules? It's not like, yes, again, rules are guidelines. I understand that, but the idea that that was not a partial success. And again, I want to stress that I had no problems with it. I loved it, but I worry that some players might feel that.
Yeah, but I think that what you were presented with as an alternative, I think sort of fits in. You found safety tools, to some degree. I think when the expectation for success might be binary, I either find the thing I'm looking for or I don't. You could run into issues, but if you set the expectation with your players that partial successes might not be exactly what you're looking for, but I'm going to give you something, use with it as you will. I think setting expectations would mitigate a lot of that player disappointment. As long as they know that they have the opportunity, and that I'm not going to just say, no, think again. I think partial successes are good at softening the blow of you didn't do great.
Right.
I've struggled a little bit as a relatively newbie DM of making sure I'm not just going, nope. Just stopping the idea dead in their tracks. Matthew makes a very good point. The definition of a partial success could be success with a sacrifice, or finding an incomplete version of the map you were looking for. It only has it's ripped in half, but it has a starting point, right, but maybe not an exit. I guess it would depend your mode of giving that partial success might just depend on the situation, and I think it would be good to have a couple of different ways of approaching it in your pocket. I like the idea of a success with a sacrifice, or a success with a downside. It doesn't have to be a physical sacrifice. It could just be, you get the map, but...
Yeah. Now, in the moment, I have to say, as a DM, it's very difficult to always come up with those ideas when players are bombarding you with new and fresh ideas. To me, it took me a lot longer than I had cared to admit to think about looking for an evacuation plan. And I'm kicking myself now that I didn't just look for exit signs and follow exit signs. But we went to a window and started looking out the windows and things, and it was a great episode. You should go watch that, Scraticus, if you haven't.
Yes,
it was an extremely good episode. It was the episode right before their season finale. I got to play with Dan Dillon from of WotC fame, Dan, and he was just hired by
such a name dropper.
I am. I love it. I love Dan. I love Dawn. I love Scraticus. I love Vicky. And I felt really bad because I made a really, really horrible joke about I only had Vicky's Twitter name. And my opening bit was we were all strapped down to these electric shock therapy chairs, and they pulled off my hood, and I made a joke about needing to be let out from Miss Vicky's House of Pain, and using my my safe word, banana pudding. And I did it very subtly. Well, it was not extremely subtly, but some people didn't quite get it, except a lot of the audience did. They were talking about it. It was hilarious, but I did not realize that the person I was playing with's name was Vicky at the time. And I had said Miss Vicky's House of Pain. And it was kind of hilarious because they were like, what? And I just, anyway. So I've apologized for that since then. And I will start using other names than Vicky, because that's been a fairly common one I've used for that gag. I've actually created that place in my world, which is great. I love it. It's amazing. Little sort of dungeon place. It exists in every world I have. It's in Cinderhaven. So
I'm good.
Although it's an actual dungeon in Cinderhaven. That's the thing.
Sure. I was just gonna say that Syl doesn't need help causing pain.
Yeah. No.
Anyway,
where do you think those shackles came from? Anyway. So in the moment, it's very difficult to do that, and I get stuck sometimes, and that may have been what happened, this idea that, I didn't even think about that. What am I going to do? How do I partial success? Well, especially on stream, you've got to keep things flowing. So and as a player in a stream, I recognize that as whatever the DM says, I'm going to roll with. I try to use the tools that he gave me. The audience did amazing things. Excuse me. And got us to so many retweets. Every 10 retweets, we get a special thing in that game, and they rolled a special potion, and my character gained a psychic ability to control plants, which is hilarious because my character was obsessed with female power figures from the 80s. So his name was Jem, Jem.
I knew that's what the reference was.
Yes, he had 80s cartoons tattoos all over his body.
I wanted him to have truly outrageous tattooed on his arm.
Well, what he had, I didn't look into it as much as I should have, and I wanted to come up more. But on one side he had strange, the other side had and loving it. But that was the only non-80s cartoon tats, and I was being very subtle with the whole thing. But his last words on the thing were, "Come at me, I'm poison ivy, bitch." And this idea of just loving all of these different powerful female figures in his past, because it reminded him of his mother, who, that was the whole backstory, they lost his mother, but none of that ever came out really. I mean, it was talked about briefly, but it didn't, it just kind of set the stage for it. But using what's given to you in these games is very important. That actually might be a good thing to talk about, is this idea of player responsibilities at some point. And if the DM hands you something, make it important. Don't just don't just say that. My character never had a psychic ability to control plants before, so in the most stressful possible moment, that's when I had it come out. It just made sense, That's when those types of things would happen naturally.
One thing that occurred to me that would be a good skill to cultivate when you're doing sort of this partial success idea, if you have to say no, and this is something we've talked about before with missing hits in combat. If you have to say no to someone that they don't get what they're looking for, but they do get maybe partial success range, maybe developing the reason why they don't find the thing as being more world building, more story building. You say, for example, you're looking for a map and you don't find the map, or you find that it's been ripped off the clipboard, and then maybe you figure, I don't have exact examples, and obviously it speaks to how sort of complicated this could be to ad lib, but the idea that you could build a little bit of narrative of what happened in the moment that caused that object to be missing now. The idea that it doesn't even have to be relevant to your game necessarily, but if you're just trying to build atmosphere, you have the idea that it's like, the map got ripped from the clipboard and you see blood across the clipboard, and you find a desiccated corpse on the floor, and clutched in its hands is just a rotted, you can't read the map, but clearly that person was trying to get out and had the same thought you did, and it just, but instead of just saying no, you don't find it, and it becomes this hole in someone's perception, this just doesn't exist, you add detail for why this doesn't exist, and it gives them a little bit of story for the location that they're in. It maybe heightens the sense of danger. You realize, okay, there was something here that ate the person that had the map.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I think that's exactly where my character went in this moment. Dawn did an amazing job. Was I found the clipboard where it would be, but it was missing. And I'm like, somebody took it. Somebody went, I got to get the fuck out of here. And they just snatched it off of there, which is exactly what I was going to do. I was like, I don't care if it's a sign or a piece of paper, I'm ripping it off the wall and I'm walking out with it. And so it completely made sense to me that it wasn't there in that moment. Now, I didn't push that the idea is it's supposed to be every 20, 30 feet, because I always think of these places kind of like the World of Darkness. The World of Darkness is our world, but a little twisted to be darker. A little more people don't follow the rules the way they're supposed to. So, and having a lot of HR training and OSHA training and things, you don't, other people don't necessarily know that. It's okay. I don't use that knowledge and push it in game to win. I try to make a good story with the information that I'm given and the information I can contribute.
Yeah. I think that's, it plays a little bit into the idea of DM improvisational skills that are worth cultivating, understanding how to give a little bit, even when they shouldn't technically have succeeded, giving, you're not only sort of using it to soften the blow and not just saying, no, you don't get the thing you want. But you're providing your players with tools to maybe take their task in a different direction or to think outside the box. How would you implement partial success in D&D? Would you just set a DC that's lower for partial success? I do partial
successes all the time.
So it's just if you hit this, it's partial. If you hit this, it's actual success.
Things like climbing and stuff, you can move, okay, you move a little bit, you move half speed, or you move full speed, or, I do partial successes on a lot of different things. I don't do it on everything, but I do on some things put in little partial successes. It's just not necessarily known that I'm doing that. I don't say that.
Sure.
I just kind of describe what happens, and everyone seems to be very good with it every time I've done it. So
from a DMing perspective, do you have that DC planned, or is it like, oh, they're within like 2, I'm going to give them a partial success? Is that how you think about it, or do you have an actual DC in your head?
Usually I have the idea that it's something that has a range of success available in it before that. Climbing is one of those easy ones. Climbing is like, well, there's either really good footholds that I can just do, or there's not. And let's see, and I use the roll to kind of let that describe. So somebody's like, I'm going to climb this cliff. Okay, give me the roll. And if they roll extremely well, I'm like, yeah, you monkey up there, you're at the top, no problem, you're done. Or if they roll kind of middle, I'm like, you kind of make it about halfway, and you're still struggling and you're trying to get up, find those footholds. So it's usually in areas that have already got partial successes.
I have a meta DMing question for you.
Okay, I love
when you get skill checks and stuff. How frequently do you have a DC in your head, and how frequently do you just go, give me the roll, and then you determine how difficult something is based on how well they did?
I don't determine how difficult it is based on how well they do. I just use that as kind of a range of how well they did. That's another way that I do, like climbing. That's one of those things. It's like, I don't go through the book and go, okay, well, it's a sheer face with
DC 12.
With minor, exactly. I don't go through and do all the calculations. I just kind of know roughly about where I think it should be. Sometimes, not necessarily with climbing, but some checks vary based on your ability and skill level. Because you guys are on a higher tier, certain tasks, especially if you're facing off against an NPC, in most cases, those NPCs you would have a different DC at this level than you would at a lower level, because the NPCs you're surrounding yourself with, they need to be able to put up with you and deal with you a little bit better. But there's also times that you can just run right over them,
Yeah, that's how I've been starting to in my DMing improv. Is I don't necessarily have that difficulty set locked in. Yeah. It's I that's not exactly how it was written. I know there are systems that do that, where it's more like there is a success number and there is a failure number built into your rolls. Yeah. So if you do well, you're going to do that. D&D tends to at least imply that there's a difficulty that should be preset and you're trying to achieve that difficulty. But I've found that I'm more often than not leaning into okay, how well did you do not that I'm comparing to a DC, it's just, okay, you rolled a 17. In general, that's a pretty good roll.
Yeah, the hardest numbers for me are between at mid to high level, like where you guys are at now. The hardest numbers for me are between 12 and 14. Those are the numbers I go, I really don't know. I have that I may take pause and kind of look something up and be like, okay, it really should be a 15 or an 18 or something like that. But a lot of the rolls and checks you guys make are against monsters and creatures,
and you have those
set DCs.
Yeah, you've got the DCs to work with.
But then there's things that I make up. Yeah. And while I'm making them up, I just kind of use whatever's close. I know that it's this kind of power level. I know it's this kind of counter level. So I just kind of look and see what I can kind of grab from different places to kind of set those DCs. Like, oh, the last 3 monsters you guys fought, the DCs for their saves have been 19s. This monster save is 19. It's or this one's meant to be harder than that. It's a 20. Like last time.
It occurs to me. It occurs to me that the idea of a set DC permeating through the D&D system really does inform the idea that it is a very kind of combat intensive system, or that it originated in a combative system. The idea that everything has a set thing to overcome, as opposed to Fennec had a good example that the Star Trek Adventures has a failure range. GURPS has success and failure that is purely based on you. I actually really like the GURPS system, that you have set set skill numbers, and you are trying to roll underneath that number, because I guess the justification would be anything underneath your skill is your maximum ability of success. And so anything below that, yeah, you can handle that. You can achieve that thing, because this is as good as you will ever do in this skill. So it's just a different way of, I like the idea of different systems having different ways of thinking about success.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that about GURPS. It reminds me of the, not planar ally, divine intervention from D&D.
Yeah.
This idea that the more powerful you get, the more your god is likely to respond to you, and so you roll underneath your level. I think that's a great. I just think that's an awesome thing. Well, that's the one thing I liked about GURPS. Everything else I didn't like. And I played it for 3 years.
Well, the failure system seems more like there is a, rather than you failed to meet the difficulty set in front of you, it's just you blanket have failed in the attempt of the thing you are doing. So it's less like it's less like there is an opponent, whether it's a person or an obstacle opponent. It's more just your personal skill level and whether you can do the thing. It's just refocusing a little bit where that failure and where that success comes from. It's less about beating a thing. It's more about achieving based on your personal skill level. Which I like that sort of shift in thought. It leans,
but in the GURPS system, the difficulty of the thing you're trying to do adjusts your die too, so it's all still factored in.
Yeah, but this idea that it's just a different way of looking at it's still. And what's beautiful about it is higher numbers still mean you're better at it. It's not like you're thinking in reverse. The way you achieve
with GURPS, you are.
Well, but the higher your skill number is, the easier
sure.
it is to roll under that number. Right. So your character sheet is still legible to somebody who's maybe operating in a D&D system, that you still know higher number equals better at that skill. It's just the way it translates is different.
Absolutely, except when it comes to modifying rolls, it became very confusing. And again, if I'm misremembering GURPS, please somebody correct me.
You give it a
but if you add and it's bad, that's where I found most players had a problem. So you roll 3d6, you add 8, and that's bad. You still want to roll low. You've got to unroll under your stats. So you're trying to do a
think about it like those additions are adding challenge to your attempt. It is more difficult. It's almost like a straw breaking the camel's back.
With that.
Sure, it is. Yes, it's different. I watch a lot of, or I listen to a lot of film reroll, and they play GURPS, and I've looked at the GURPS system, and it's robust.
Yes.
But if you have somebody that's really good at it, it is very easy to play it, given the tools having the tools handed to you. It is not a difficult system to learn.
I would love to find a universal system that's a little bit easier than that, and it's tough because I haven't found anything out there that I've liked as much that is able to deal with things like different tech levels and things like that. The problem is those are all very complicated thoughts, and that should be a whole different series talking about GURPS and multiverse and stuff like that. So we can get into all of that at some point.
Heck yeah.
But we are rapidly. We should already be doing review, and we still have 2 things to talk about.
Sure. Let's talk about making it matter. We'll bring it up as a all right. So you were inspired, I think, by Matthew Mercer saying something.
Matthew Mercer. I was at the Quintana Philosophical Party about a little over a year ago, and Matt Mercer was talking to a group of people that and myself, and we were just chatting about encounters and random encounters in general. And Matt, if I understand correctly, and again, I have not had any time to watch Matt recently, and my memory is not always the best. But if I remember correctly, Matt likes to role play out travel. He doesn't do a lot of skipping travel. He wants everything along the way to kind of be a part of the story. So we were talking about specifically how he handles random encounters. Matt says about a month or 2 after they started working with Geek and Sundry and doing it live to an audience, he eliminated all random encounters. He eliminated any encounter that did not matter. And that kind of hit home with me. And I was like, it makes perfect sense. You get only a limited amount of time with this group, especially if you're doing it live. It's like Chekhov's gun. If you throw in something, there needs to be a purpose. Now, I'm not saying it has to be plot related, neither was he, but it needs to be important. Like right now, we are doing several random encounters over and over again for an entire week. All we did was random encounters in Lamina Island on Countless Heroes. but there was a purpose to it. It was to show you how dangerous this island is. This is a savage, horrible world that the players are entering into, and I needed them to understand how dangerous it was. And then literally after getting stranded there, the very first thing they did was they happened to run across the most dangerous foe they're going to face on Lamina Island, which is amazing. So it has been very, very exciting. But we went from the week of just kind of random encounters and learning about Lamina to here's the plot and it's even worse than you thought. And the idea is all of those had a purpose of building up the danger so that when they finally got to the true danger, they would understand how bad it really was. And that means they had purpose. So the idea, even though I was rolling random encounters, they still matter. So the idea was every encounter should matter. There should never just be a filler encounter. There shouldn't be filler people. There shouldn't be anything. Make sure that every person, every NPC is sacred. That's the thought. Every encounter is sacred. You need to make sure that they have a point. And this is not for everyone, but that is the philosophy that I went with. And I really liked, and I started changing how I DM from that. If you remember when we were playing Tolos before, this is not live stream or anything, but we had a lot of random, just kind of filler encounters, and the game got better when I stopped doing that, and I just started focusing on what was actually happening. What is it?
But opening up the opportunity for us to do random encounters if we so chose, like the combat arena in Cinderhaven. If we wanted to go fucking just kill a thing or fight something, we could do that.
Right. And I have that Lamina as well.
But you still made the combat matter. Like, you presented us, and this might just be because we had a good roleplay moment, or we had a good combination of people that this worked out. But for example, you brought in a giant that could cast mind magic, and they put the whammy on Syl, because Syl is very susceptible to mind magic, or to control magic, and she fucked up one of her friends who had just, Callie had just, gotten to a point where she had gained this trust and appreciation for Syl, and then Syl just got turned into a murder machine. The exact thing that Callie had been told her people were. And so Syl had a tremendous amount of, thank you. Syl had a tremendous amount of self-consciousness because of that one moment, and it fed into the next feat that she took when she leveled, and that little fight had a lot of repercussions because we found those little inlets of character building through what was ostensibly a randomized encounter that we had chosen.
But and again, those encounters were palette cleansers. That's what they're designed for. And I have those in Lamina now. The idea that you can just go off randomly and just explore, those are kind of palette cleansers. Those are more of the type of things you ran into around the island. That if you need to not be just surrounded by the plot for a day, you can just go off and do something different. And they're not always going to be bad. Some will be fun, like the little pink puffball one, and learning just more about things that happen.
Yeah.
But the idea is that I'm never just going to go. You're wandering along on the way to do something, and something else interrupts you that has no meaning. There's no reason for it. Everything is chosen for a reason. Even if it's a random encounter, there's a purpose for it. I'm not just going, the rules say I have to roll a random encounter every hour of travel. I rolled a random encounter, and there's 6 wolves that are eating your face now. It's just, there's no reason for it.
It makes me think of the treat your random encounters like you would every sentence in a short story. I have internalized this idea that if you're writing short fiction, you need the biggest bang for your buck. Every sentence needs to do one of two things. It needs to either move the story forward, or it needs to reveal character. That idea of nothing should just be a throwaway.
Right.
Do things with intention. Make sure that every sentence in your short story is serving a purpose and not just there because you need to get from point A to point B, because you're dealing in a shortened format.
Right. So this is interesting because one of the things that in my designing one of the biggest lessons that hit home for me when I finally broke away from trying to know it all and actually turned to people who knew what they were doing a decade ago. One of the first lessons that I had is I went to one of my designer friends. I said, "Hey, can you look over this? Let me know what you think." And the first thing he said to me before you send it to me, have you taken everything out that you can take out? Have you removed everything you can and still gotten the point across? And I went, no, why would I? It looks great. He says, do that first. Take everything out that can be sacrificed, that does not actually serve a purpose, that does not actually belong there to get the point across, to tell the story. And I ended up with something very minimalist, but really good. And I said it to him, and he gave me a few more pointers and little tweaks. And in the end, I came up with a product and a style that I really liked. It was not over embellished. There wasn't a lot of fluff to it. And it got the point across. And that became my style for my sign and design for 10 years. And it worked very well. I did extremely well with it. A lot of people liked it. I kind of tweaked it eventually into kind of a neo retro style, right for the last 3 or 4 years before I met Ange and stuff. And now I'm tweaking it a little bit again. Ange and I work extremely well together. We do very different style together now, in that, because Ange is very good at texturing and things, the stuff that I could never do. So, but that's always the big thing is, that was the first thing I told Ange. I said, we need to take away everything that does not belong, that doesn't need to be there. And I think that's the same way with DMing. Take out all the stuff that doesn't need to be there, leave the stuff that needs to be there, and make sure that it is as flavorful and tasty as possible.
Fennec said something in chat that I want to circle back to. Make your MacGuffins matter. So MacGuffin inherently, by definition, serves purely as a purpose of keeping the story moving forward. It is the goal. It is some people might interpret that as being important. But if the thing that the MacGuffin itself doesn't really matter in a lot of those situations. It's just about, you have to get a thing.
Or do something with the thing. Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Lord of the Rings, the ring could have been a sword, the ring could have been a person, the ring could have been anything. It's a powerful thing, we got to go throw in the thing.
Right.
The point is, it tells us we have to get there.
Right. And at that point, when you're using MacGuffins, it's not about the MacGuffin. I'm not trying to knock the use of MacGuffin either. A MacGuffin is valuable because it's not the object that's important. It is what it does to people that's important. It's how people react to the promise of power or success or whatever that MacGuffin symbolizes. That is the more important part. You find a lot of MacGuffin things, they're explorations of humanity or evil and good and what someone would do with power. And those, it doesn't really matter what the power is. It matters how people react to it. So I do like the idea. I think MacGuffins done well already matter because it's about their purpose, serving everything else in the story, not necessarily the MacGuffin itself. But you can imbue more power, more story power to a MacGuffin if you are building it into your world. I don't have an issue with MacGuffins in general. Like you said, they're a very powerful story tool. But yeah, I think MacGuffin often gets dismissed, and I think if you actually look at the narrative purpose of a MacGuffin, I don't think there's something to be derided. They can be done lazily. If you don't put any consideration into the why your MacGuffin is important to the world, then yeah, you're going to just be like, okay, here's a thing, go do the thing, and it just becomes a fetch quest. It just feels like a video game that's not been implemented very well at that sort of point. But I do like the idea. That phrase is very pithy, Fennec. I appreciate the phrase of making your MacGuffin matter.
Yeah.
Also, Zach, puffing up your MacGuffins with Logan and Angela.
Yes, I love that.
Thank you, Zach. All right. We got 15 minutes. We can do this. Funhouse rules. This is an interesting idea, and I really wanted to talk about it. Okay, so the premise is, in D&D specifically, you build your character. You choose a race, you choose a class, you choose a background, and you get different bonuses when you build those elements into your character. You get certain skills and things from your class, and your class has certain requirements, especially with like multi-classing. You need to have certain stats of certain heights to be able to get to multi-class into different things. So you need to have a certain strength in order to become a fighter. You need a certain wisdom to become a druid, to dip into druid. When you build your character, you either randomly roll your stats or you assign them based on an array you point by. And then you get some bonuses based on the race that you pick, because the races have inherent skills, whether that's a propensity towards magic. Goliaths and furbolgs they're stronger inherently. They're just bigger, so they get a better push, pull, drag weight. They can carry twice as what they're considered a whole size class larger when pulling something. There are, halflings get inherent luck. There's different features that the races all get because of whatever the justification is. They also get bonus stat bumps. So, like, the idea that an elf is inherently more wise or dexterous. Anyway, that happens. All the races have these little bonus stats. Now, there are inherent problems with that being the structure. On the one hand, I like the idea of each type of folk that you pick having a little trick, something to feel like you get to do something a little fun because you made that choice. When you start saying that certain races are wiser than others, certain races are built to be different ways, you do get into a little bit of a racial determinism, which makes me personally a little uncomfortable. So I was looking at alternate ways of assigning stat bonuses. So instead of just saying, I'm probably wrong here, I'm a half-orc, so I get a +2 to my strength and a +1 to my constitution. What if you want to play a sickly orc that you don't necessarily care about having that high strength, or you want to play a beefy gnome or something? There are mechanical advantages to picking certain combinations for min-maxers, and that's going to be the case with anything that has rules, but I like the idea of being able to allow for a variety of strengths and weaknesses to exist across a spectrum within a race, and not just say, all dwarves are this, and so they all start with this base thing. Allowing each of the populations to have their own gradients. People really love the variety in races to begin with, so I don't think that there necessarily has to be a mechanic stat bump in certain races. They get enough stuff, and I know that there's lots of ways of reapproaching the idea of a race. Pathfinders, I think the new Pathfinder is going to be exploring background or like upbringing versus racial background, which I'm very excited to see what they do with that. But so I found half my shit's on Reddit lately. I found some examples of alternate stat assignments for when you first build your character. And this is partly coming from my gentle D&D idea where I'm foregoing racial bonuses and stuff. I'm using a system called Gateway RPG and the Black Hack, which is a simplified they're both simplified 5e systems. And Gateway completely does away with the idea of racial bonuses of any kind. You just describe what your character is. So that allows me to do something where it's like, hey, you can literally be anything you conceive of. Do you want to be a sentient fire person? You can be a sentient fire person. That's like not a genasi. You can do anything. So the idea of how to give people that ability to still customize their character with certain stat bonuses. The options that I have seen include giving people stat bonuses or points based on the class they decide, saying retroactively certain people with certain skill sets tend to gravitate towards different jobs, different classes. Someone who is very intelligent is likely going to lean into wanting to be a wizard more so than somebody who just has an incredibly high constitution but isn't very smart or isn't really interested in academia. Obviously, there's going to be drawbacks to any of these stat assignment concepts, but I do really like the idea of just separating the stat bonuses from your racial background and just saying, regardless of your racial background, you're the kind of person that would want to be a druid. And that's because you have a wisdom and an awareness of the world around you, and that's sort of what druids are like.
So I think they did the really good job with that because they already took that away. We used to have favored classes for races, and I like that they got rid of that completely. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that you need to take away the physical and mental attributes away from either genetics or upbringing. In certain cultures, there could be a propensity for one way or the other. It's only a 10% swing on even the most extreme circumstances. +2 or -2 is only a 10% swing. So I don't think that just because your race has a tendency to be like this doesn't mean you can't play a weak, sickly version of it by taking a dump stat and putting it in strength and playing a sickly orc. Because even with a +2, you could still have an 8 with a dump stat on a rolled stat. So
my proposal here is coming partly less from a mechanical optimization standpoint, less from a how to make the mechanics fairer, because I know it's relatively negligible. 10% is not a huge thing. It's coming more from a place of what does that mechanic say about your world and your worldview that I'm maybe bucking against here. Okay. Mechanical choices in RPGs say a lot about the kind of world that you're trying to build, and when you base your mechanic off of races, especially using the word race, that's the other reason why I'm a big proponent of maybe trying to find a different way of explaining that, because race as a term means something different in the real world, and so finding a different way of expressing that might be healthier. So it's just this idea of figuring out a different way of expressing the origins of those little perks that you have, those little edges that you get, rather than just saying it's purely from your racial background. And like I said, it's just there's a little bit of racial determinism in putting that in the mechanic that I'm trying to figure out if there's a better way of expressing it.
So the problem is that we live in a world where we don't really have different races. I mean, we have different races in the way we've determined races, but we don't have extremes. So if we compared us to cheetahs and to sloths and to dolphins, each one has its own very different genetic. Now, if they were all sentient races, let's just say they're all sentient, okay? Cheetahs and gorillas and whatever else, they're all sentient. We have very extremely different races or different folks within our world all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. They have different genetic contributions, different genetic abilities that make very inherent. There's obviously gorillas are going to have strength. Cheetahs are going to have a higher dexterity and a faster move. These are physical attributes that they're going to have over us because of what they are. So to me, I don't see a problem with that because we don't have things. Again, maybe race is the word. Maybe that's the problem.
The big problem is, yes, it's
they are
about
literally different people.
Right, but we don't use the word species when it comes to this. So it's because everyone, right, and once you're dealing in fantasy genetics, it's weird.
Well, and then the other twist of that, and the reason why race is used so often, I think, is because you can breed in between these groups. And now all of a sudden you've got this weird idea that if we had sentient gorillas and sentient dolphins, would we have relationships? And then it becomes a very weird set of questions. And then what if we could crossbreed? And it becomes a very weird sort of thing. And that's what we're trying to do in the world. And then we try to gloss over those questions and go, you know what? It's a game. And that's why I think a lot of people, and I think that's why that battle that you're struggling with is going to be a very hard fought battle, is because the questions of the game and the way that we talk about it, I'm not saying it's not worth fighting, but the questions that we're coming up with here make us think things about our world that we don't want to think about. And not just the ridiculousness of what I'm saying, but the more implications of what it would mean talking about what we talk about as race, and in our real world, what race is to us.
Yeah.
And what that could mean if we start thinking, did we pull this from there, or is this something we've created? And
there are questions of it's a complicated sociological question of how we deal with that in the game system. And like I said, I'm almost at a point where it might even be more valuable for me to be like, everybody gets a +2, a +1. So put it where
something
you want
you
it.
absolutely could do. But so the other thing, and you just need to justify it. Again, maybe background or something could be another way to do that. It's another way to look at it.
I like the idea of background, your background or occupation.
You're a farmer, you're probably strong, and you might not be as educated.
The things you have, I like this idea of maybe emphasizing that there are going to be outliers of people who just hit the genetic lottery for whatever reason and happen to be geniuses or happen to be whatever, but that everybody has the propensity to at least reach a certain level of excellence in something or expertise in something, given enough training and effort. So the idea of just saying, explain away however you want your +2 and your +1 that you get to assign. You can say, this is because I trained, or I just happen to be a more empathetic person, or experiences in my life led me to focus on this more than anything else. But yeah, I'm inclined more and more lately to just be like, assign them how you want, because there are questions that come up in D&D that I'm like,
it's not going to take any enjoyment away from me. But what I wanted to kind of get to was, and Matthew pointed this out, is that all the races are fundamentally humanoid. I was trying to remove in our real world the idea that we're talking about what we consider races, but there are a lot of things like Doctor Who and a lot of other different science fiction that have discussed what other races, humanoid races developed from different species of the world would have been like lizard folk, lizards growing up or evolving and becoming humanoid. And some of them, they're just like humans and have little tweaks and abilities. And some of them have very big genetic differences. The question comes, what do you want to do? It's your world. I'm not saying one way is wrong or right. I'm saying that I can understand both of them. If dinosaurs evolved into humanoids, or if a lizard type versus a chicken versus a cat folk, all developed through genetics, through evolution into a humanoid-like figure, they would have very different genetic makeups. They would have different propensity. They would have survived differently. And in that, I can understand having the physical and mental minor, and we say 10%, but actually in the end, it's a +1 or a -1, which on a D20 is a 5% swing. That's a small, tiny, minor swing in the grand scheme of the game. But I also completely understand where you're coming from, and I would have no problems changing it to something else as well. And if that is something that needs to happen to make the game more comfortable and more inclusive to others, it's worth doing.
I agree. I'm very much looking into. I'm looking forward to seeing what Pathfinder does with the sort of more of a cultural background thing, that your skills, your propensities for different abilities stem from the values that you are raised with and the things that you focus on mentally or physically because of your cultural upbringing. I like that being maybe more of the focus. And of course, as usual, we didn't quite finish our review, but we will review.
We're going to do a review right after this because there were some amazing things, but we will not be on camera for that. Well, hopefully next week we will get to that. We'll try to tighten up our topics a little bit more, but we got to about the same spot we normally do on these deep discussions. And again, amazing discussions. I went into that, though, having the wrong idea because I was very tired last night. We were talking about this, or yesterday. I thought we were talking about stat rolling, not the stat slides. You were talking about them, so I was coming with all these amazing
bonuses that you
rolling.
get. The bonuses that you get
absolutely.
after you've rolled
It's
your
explained
stats.
extremely well. I'm just an idiot and very inconsiderate. So I apologize. I went into that a little blindsided, but great topic. You explained it extremely well. And like I said, it may not bother me. I can understand that it bothers others, and I'm willing to change as we move on forward and change these things. I've tried really hard to start using folks instead of race. It doesn't come naturally to me yet, but when I can catch it, I do. As a matter of fact, I've started using folks occasionally in real world conversations, which I think is a better way to talk about people in general. And I've had several other people start to do the same thing, which I think is kind of neat. That that even if we only create our own little language that's happier and better for us as a small part of the world, you know what? If it makes someone feel better and makes them more comfortable, I'm all for it. So thank you guys again very much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for, just everything. Come back and see us at 5 o'clock tonight. Well, not us. See Matthew Siebert. He's running that thing. And I am going to Homebrew Studio at 5 o'clock. That thing. I am so tired. Homebrew Studio at 5 o'clock, and you will see some amazing, fun, homebrew-like stuff. Well, Matthew probably talks about something incredible because he always does. And we will have some fun. I'll be there in chatting away with you all. And go visit Die Hard Dice. Go see World Anvil. Come to our Anaheim meetup. Win some fun stuff. Tweet about the show. Follow us on Twitter. And you will have a chance to win some amazing dice.
Thank you all. And please be good to each other.
Bye-bye.